Hello, I want to welcome each and every of you to the maiden edition of Teens Reality TV show. I am your host, Pastor Udo. Our vision is to create a new brand of teenagers who can get to understand who they are, who they were created to be by God, and helping them navigate this life easily by His help. It is so important. Hello. Welcome to Teens Reality. I am your host, Pastor Udo. We are going to be continuing on our exciting topic, preparing your teen for life's challenges. Wow, a lot has been discussed so far. Parents just have been brought to realize that yes, challenges happen, failure is real, and that when failure happens, it must be dealt with. The teenager is not encouraged to run away from failure, but he's taught how to deal with it and then to keep on advancing, growing, and progressing. The idea of all this is to ensure that your teenagers are being groomed and prepared early for what certainly lies in their futures. The moment they can come to realize what they stand to gain when they prepare early, you realize that your teenager will get on board. Because some of you might be saying, oh, I've tried so far, but they have not been responding positively. They're not taking it serious. They think that everything that has been going on will keep on going on without any significant changes. But I want to encourage you to not stop. The fact that your teenager might not yet be seen from where you're seeing does not mean you as the parent will give up your role that you need to play to ensure that they are prepared to deal with failure and with the challenges that life will throw at them. Remember, you were once a teenager, and sometimes you need to ask yourself, some of the decisions I made, how would I have felt if someone had told me beforehand how to deal with it? Many times we feel like if I had known, if someone had shown me the rule book, if someone had shown me the guidebook, I feel I would have made better choices. And some of you look back at your life and you're like, oh, I'm certainly not going to make this mistake with my own daughter or with my own son. These experiences you've had are things you must draw upon to strengthen your resolve, even when your teenager may not be giving the kind of response you want him to give you, in your efforts to build resilience in them, in your efforts to see that they are ready to deal with failure. You don't want children who get to the point where they're unable to do what is necessary. Because during the course of this particular episode, we're going to be looking at a particular example of a study a particular psychologist carried out and the results that we're seeing when a certain group of children were not corrected, were not punished, were not given any kind of restrictions or limitations. And when you look at the results of the experiment, you realize that what you have started with your child is certainly the best for them. Alright, we're going to keep on looking now at different ways to deal with failure as a teenager. We took our time to look at acknowledging and processing the emotions you feel. At that first outset, when you feel, talked about not suppressing it, speaking to a loved one, talking about it, ensuring that yes, be aware that yes, this is how I felt. Don't just bottle it up. You get to share with someone you know. We also talked about taking a little break, a time apart from that, to at least recover and then move on. We talked next about developing a healthy mindset. This was very important. Remember, after processing those emotions, the next step is to realize that yes, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to quit. This failure is not what is going to define me. So that healthy mindset, we're talking about now treating yourself, being kind to yourself, treating yourself the way you treat a friend who just comes to share with you, oh, I just feel that this. You will not tell that child, that friend, that, oh, you're a failure, you're going to keep feeling at everything. No. The same way you treat a friend, you treat yourself, be kind to yourself, be conscious of the fact that yes, this has happened, but this does not define your entire future. You have to reframe that failure and look at it as a learning experience, something to learn from, something to grow from, and something from which you can only become better at doing. Next, we're going to be looking at moving forward and planning. Next, to move forward and plan. How does one move forward and plan, you might ask? Number one, reflect and learn. Ask yourself what you can learn from the experience and what you could do differently next time. This is very important. Now, for those of you who tuned in last week, I told you to do a particular exercise, as in our last episode, to catalog your past failures. For those, as many as you can remember, where you had failed at something, at a certain expectation of you, at a certain task, at a certain competition, or some whatever it is, catalog it and ask yourself now, based on that list you've drawn up, I want you now to reflect upon it and ask yourself, what can you learn from that experience you had in the past? What can you learn from that? Some of you might have just experienced that failure and just put it off, locked it up into an aspect of your life that is forgotten and done with. But now I'm calling upon you to go and now look back on that situation, because there is something to be learned from there. Now, what can you learn from that experience? And the next question is, what could I have done differently? So if I'm to try it the next time, I'll actually employ this new step. So what could I have done? What can I do differently next time? Because sometimes when you look at something in the heat of the moment, not every aspect of it is open to it. Not every perspective is made clear to you. But now when you come back after a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or some of even a few years, if the feeling you're going to be bringing back is something that happened perhaps in your childhood or something like that, no. So you're going to be looking at it with new eyes, clearer vision. And suddenly it's going to be coming to you, whoa, I could have done this differently. I could have tried it in this alternate method. And perhaps this is why I failed at it. You understand? It's just like getting from point A to B. Someone can decide to walk in a straight line from like the middle of this palm and get to this location A to B. You arrive. The idea is to go from here to here. Someone can decide to go in a kind of curving manner and still arrive at this point. Someone can decide to go forward, come back inwards, go like this again, go outwards again, come out, and then get to this point here. But the idea is that these three different people all have a goal to move from point A to point B. So when we say, what can you do differently next time? So you look at yourself and say, okay, the goal is still to get from this point to this point, or still to win or succeed at this. But what new strategy am I going to apply? Or could I have applied that will make me better? So these are questions of what asking yourself. Next, seek feedback. So once you've brought back that self and asked yourself what you can learn and what you can do differently, next is to seek feedback. Ask someone knowledgeable for constructive criticism to help you improve in the future. Now, constructive criticism is very good for your teenagers, and it's good for you, yes. Now, sometimes people may tell you, oh, I don't like harsh words, I don't like someone correcting me, but please, if people don't correct you, how do you expect to improve? People who correct you are those who can look clearly at what you're missing, what you're getting wrong, and then point it out to you to say, oh, try it this way, try it that way. That's what they're trying to do for you. That is what they want to do for you. So you yourself now, having realized what you could have done differently and what you've learned, is now to meet someone who has a working knowledge or experiential knowledge of that particular area from where you're coming from or angle, and ask, okay, I tried this thing, I see that you're quite good at it. Can you look at the way I did mine and offer me any advice on what better I can do? You understand? They will listen to you and they will give you their input. Then you go back and put into practice what you've learned. Don't feel bad for that information or the criticism they're offering to you. Remember, the idea is to improve based on what you are learning from that feedback you have gotten. That is why it's called feedback. Next, set realistic goals. Make a new manageable plan with realistic goals and then take small steps towards them. So now you're equipped with what you can do better, necessary feedback. Now set new goals. You're looking once again at that target, at that goal. So you're going to be setting new manageable plan with realistic goals and then take small steps toward them. The idea is to ensure that you don't develop a quitter's mentality or someone, as the Bible says, who puts their hand to the plow and looks back. The Bible says such is not fit for the kingdom. Imagine. The Bible can tell you categorically that someone who puts his hand to the plow and then looks back is not fit for the kingdom. It tells you that if you put your hand to the plow and look back in life, you're not fit for the challenges that will come your way. One of the reasons why you're going to be setting a new manageable plan is that the feedback you've received, the information you've gotten, you understand, it brings you an understanding what you need to do. So you don't just rush ahead now. You're going to be guided in every single step you're going to be taking. So it's called taking small steps, small but significant steps on the path to winning victory or achieving success. That's the idea. So it is a manageable plan. The input you received, the direction, the constructive criticism, it will go a long way in ensuring that the goals you set are realistic and obtainable. Because sometimes, for some of you, what made you fail in the first place was that the goals were not realistic. You have to push yourself too hard and too fast, too quickly. But now, having spoken with those who are more knowledgeable about it, they're not telling you, okay, why did you go to dream big? You dream big, but you must be directed and organized. You must be strategic in how you're trying to win that goal. Someone who starts out just running today should not expect to be running the Olympics by next year. It doesn't work that way. You will train. Even if you have the skill, the innate ability, you still need to get in with the right kind of coaches to be selected. A lot of stuff needs to go on before you are given that slot. So it's all about setting realistic goals to ensure that you do not set yourself up for failure when you can actually get the success that you desire. Next, try again. The most important step is to keep going and try again. Very important. Failure should not make you give up. You must keep going and try again. Each attempt gets you closer to success. Teenagers, realize this, remember this. Don't stop at a step and tell yourself you're done. Keep at it. The more you keep at it, the more you are building up that resilient and fighting spirit. The more you are making yourself able to deal with failure when it eventually comes, if it does come again. So keep trying. Keep trying. Try and try and try again. Don't stop. Don't hold back. Don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Keep learning. Keep pushing for more and more and more and more. And one thing is certain, you will come out on top. Alright, we're going to go for a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be discussing, as I said, about the research done by the psychologists and the effects of having no punishments, no restrictions, and no boundaries placed on growing children. Hello, I want to welcome each and every of you to the maiden edition of Teens Reality TV show. I am your host, Pastor Udo. Our vision is to create a new brand of teenagers who can get to understand who they are, who they were created to be by God, and helping them navigate this life easily by His help. It is so important Alright, welcome back from that quick break. Remember, if you want to reach out to us, the number to use is +234 813 929 2708, or send an email to teensreality@lifechangerstouch.org. Now we're going to continue. We've taken our time to look at certain steps that can be put into place to deal with failure as a teenager. I encourage you to ensure that you watch this particular aspect over and over again and put it into practice. Do not just hear and keep it aside. Practice it to be certain that yes, it has taken root and has begun to produce results for you personally. Now, we're trying to point out how failure, if one is not prepared for failure, how dangerous it can be. Now, before we continue, I want to look at a particular experiment that was carried out by a psychologist some years ago. Now, there's debates about how truthful this experiment really is, but the most important thing is to look at the resultant analysis and the effects that was gotten after it. Now, it says, a psychologist observed children who were never scolded for 30 years, and the result was scarier than he expected. The experiment lasted 3 decades. A group of children were raised without punishment, without shouting, and without restrictions. They were allowed everything. The statement, the child knows what's best for them. The parents were sure that this would raise free, confident, genius individuals. But when these children turned 18, the shock began. They couldn't cope with life. They lacked an internal break. The word no triggered aggression. Any refusal caused a tantrum. They didn't know how to take a punch. When pain appeared, they didn't look for a solution. They looked for who was to blame. A brain that never encountered boundaries turned out to be incapable of withstanding even minor stress. Work became torture for them because work means discipline, deadlines, and responsibility. But they were taught, only do what you like. The first boss demanded reports and they simply quit. Not out of protest, but out of incapacity. The world where one has to adapt seemed hostile to them. Let's stop here first of all. You can see that. It talks about how these children were raised without boundary, without punishment. They were allowed to make their decisions, do what they want, when they wanted it, how they wanted it. The parents had no say whatsoever. No say. Imagine having no boundaries. Imagine having no idea of the concept of the fact that yes, certain things can bear certain repercussions. So a child is left to grow up without an understanding of the kind of consequences that can result. When you're not punished for doing things that are wrong, when you're not groomed to see or taught to see that yes, those limits are set for your good. You're not given an idea of the fact that yes, maybe tests, assignments, ratings, and approvals are given for your own benefit to monitor progress. Now imagine a child who has never tested, never gone through a test or an exam or a classwork or a homework. Doesn't know what it means to be scored badly, you understand, or passed highly. So he doesn't know how to deal with the concept of the fact that yes, you cannot get the score you want all the time. See what happens when they turned 18, the shock began. They realized that they could not deal with life. They could not cope with it. Anything that went outside of their comfort zone or what they perceived life was supposed to give to them resulted in them having a breakdown or a meltdown, tantrums, anger. There was never any question of looking inwards. It was always about looking outwards to who was to blame for why things were not going the way it was supposed to go for them. They failed to realize that what they were going through was as a result of their own choices. And now when you make choices, they are results of choices. They are rewards of the choices. The rewards can either be good or bad. Because some of you right now as parents might be set down on this path of let my child do what they want to do. And they will deal with it when they grow up. They are showing you what happens when they grow up. When they grow up, they are not able to cope, they are not able to deal with it. They get into the workplace and they cannot meet up to the targets and the demands set by the employers, set by their bosses. Some get to the point where they quit. And they tell themselves, I don't need to take this. They feel they don't have to take this. Or you don't want to take this. How do you survive? How do you exist? How do you live? Let's keep reading. Work became torture for them because work means discipline, deadlines, and responsibility. 3 words that were absent throughout their growing stages. But they were taught, only do what you like. The first boss demanded the report and they simply quit. Not out of protest, but out of incapacity. The world where one has to adapt seemed the host out to them because now the world was not feeding them what they wanted. Their personal lives were even worse. A partner said no, they crumbled. Conflict was perceived as betrayal. Compromise was seen as violence. They demanded unconditional love, but didn't know how to give it themselves. Because their childhood was spent under one slogan, you are special. And when reality disagreed, their psyche couldn't cope. The psychologist summarizing the results said a phrase that later spread throughout the community. I thought that the absence of punishment would make children happy, but they grew up helpless because they don't know how to live in a world where not everything goes by their rules. Boundaries, prohibitions, the word no. This is not violence. This is brain training. Without them, the psyche doesn't mature but remains as fragile as a child's. By age 30, many participants were living with their parents, without a family, without a career, without support. Not because they were unintelligent, but because they were deprived of pain. And pain is the only thing, I'm not saying the only thing per se, but one thing that makes a person resilient. Wow. Just imagine. Do what you like. Only do what you like. If that statement has been circulating in your household or has become the slogan, it is time to abort and restart the program. It is time to begin training your child to deal with situations, deal with challenges, deal with failure. And they must start now as teenagers. Because if they don't, they will fail at life, they will fail at work, they will fail at relationships, and they will become dependent on you forever. Imagine never thinking of retiring, but having to fend for your children for the rest of your life. Never having a moment's peace, having to deal with their issues forever. They never go to the stage where they can take care of you as a parent. They never go to the stage where they can deal with issues and know how to think for themselves on what best should be done. Is that really the kind of teenager that you want? This scenario has been pointed out for some of you who might have become relaxed in your upbringing style, who might have become complacent, or who might have become complicit in allowing your teenagers to do what they like because you feel too tired to micromanage, to set boundaries, to set limits, to put exact punishments that are necessary to ensure that that fragile nature as a child is groomed into maturity. Because when you don't experience the feeling of pain, rejection, or disappointment early on, they will not know how to deal with it when they face it in the future. You break those feelings of immaturity now. Let them know that there are certain consequences to their actions and to their choices. Let them know that there are certain things that they cannot be expected to exceed. Take, for example, when we were discussing the curfew. We talked about how curfew has its purposes and its uses. We talked about that young 13-year-old girl that died while sleeping out of curfew and went riding with a 16-year-old who was driving. He didn't die. She died. She had a curfew. She thought she didn't need it. She thought perhaps her mom was overreacting. And she died. She paid with her life. She never even grew to this age of 30 or 18 where she had to deal with more life challenges. Some of you might not necessarily die, but there is a death that's beyond the physical. There is a death that is both mental, that is internal. There is a debt that can be brought to be upon your parents, who have to deal with the pressures, not just for their own lives, but for your own lives also. You have a role to play as a teenager. It's time to learn. If perhaps even in your household, your parents are not setting boundaries and you're watching this show right now, please go discuss them and let them know you need boundaries. You need them to define for you what you can do and what you cannot do. You need to know that yes, not everything is permissible. So you do not grow up wild. You do not grow up not knowing how to deal with people, develop relationships, sustain relationships, meet up to deadlines, meet up to responsibilities and finish them at the assigned or specific time. You have a plan to go to university or college. If you have that in plan, discipline must come into play right now. Deadlines must become part of your schedule. Responsibilities must not be shunned. They must be eagerly embraced, practiced, looked for. There must be looking forward to them. Because ultimately your future hangs in the balance. And the moment you realize that your future hangs in the balance and that you have that role to play, you will not make any mistake. Alright, thank you so much to every one of you who has listened to this awesome episode today. I believe a lot has been said that you need to take out time to go back and process, think about, ponder. Then feel free to ask your questions. Some of you might even be willing to have or record yourself sharing your personal experiences. Feel free to do so. We want to hear from you. We will be happy to listen to you. The number to send out any of this information to is +234 813 929 2708 or send an email to teensreality@lifechangerstouch.org. Remember, I am your lovely host, Pastor Udo. Until I come your way, same time, I want to say to you, keep preparing. Life challenges will not break you if you are not ready for them. Hello, I want to welcome each and every one of you to the maiden edition of Teens Reality TV Show. I am your host, Pastor Udo. Our vision is to create a new brand of teenagers who can get to understand who they are, who they were created to be by God, and helping them navigate this life easily by His help. It is so important